This is a simple calculator created in Visual Basic. I have three text boxes. This one's called txtnum1, txtnum2, and txtsolution. And then I have two labels. This one is named LBL operation. The other one is not named. But I named this one because this operator that's being shown here will change depending on which one of these buttons I click. As I change any of these buttons or change any of the text in these two text fields, the solution is going to be automatically updated. Let me first demonstrate it and then we'll look at the code. So here's the application running. Right now it's 5 plus 2 equals 7. If I click the minus sign button here, I'm going to get 5 minus 2. I can do multiplication. I can do division. And so as I'm clicking each of these buttons, it is changing the operator here. If I were to change the text, we'll make this 8 plus 2, it automatically updates and shows that as being 10. I'm not having to press the equal sign or some other button. We'll make this 8 plus 4 is 12. If I multiply it, 32. If I subtract, or if I divide, all those changes, all those updates are made. So let's look at the code. First of all, for my 4 buttons, all I'm doing here is changing the text of that LBL operation label. So if I click the btn add button, if it's a plus sign, btn subtract, if it's a minus, btn multiply. I used an X here because that's what most people are used to for multiplication, even though the X is not the operator in terms of most programming languages such as Visual Basic, and then the / for division. So all those buttons do is just simply change that operator. So when the LBL operation label changes, when I'm changing that text property, it's also triggering an event of text changed for the LBL operation label. And that is being handled by this subprocedure. And that same subprocedure is also handling if I change either of those txnum1 or txnum2 text boxes. So if I've changed the values of the operation or the operation itself, it's going to run this piece of code. Let's look at this code. I have a dim statement here where I'm declaring num1, num2, and solution as double values. And then in the try-catch structure, I'm going to catch any errors that happen to happen, such as if they put in something that's not numeric into the text, or if I'm trying to do some operation that would be invalid. So I'm going to take the value that's in txtnum1, convert that to a double value, assign it to my variable num1, and do the same thing for the text that's in txtnum2. I didn't use the val statement here since we're inside a try-catch. If there is an error, if they put in something other than a number, it's going to create an exception, and it simply is going to put nothing into our solution. So if there's any error, the system won't crash. It just simply puts nothing or blanks out the solution text. Then here's our if ElseIf structure. So if the operation is if the text of LBL operator contains a plus sign, we're going to add the two numbers together. If it contains a minus sign, we're going to subtract the second from the first. If it contains an X, we're going to multiply num1 by num2. And if it contains a slash, we're going to divide num1 by num2. And then all I'm doing is simply displaying that solution text, converting it to a string, and I use just 2 decimals here. And that's all my procedure is. Just a simple if-else-if structure that handles all 4 operations, and those are triggered whenever I change the text that's in the LBL operation label. Here's another example. In this case, I used checkboxes. Checkboxes are like radio buttons, except they're not mutually exclusive. I can select more than one. But I chose this because I wanted to demonstrate to you how the if-else-if functions, in that once it hits a true value, everything else below it is ignored. So I have these 4 text boxes, and they're named CBX item 1, CBX item 2, CBX item 3, and CBX item 4. And then here is our button. named btn process, and the code for it is I have a string variable called choice, which equals nothing, or quote, quote, a null string. If the first button is checked, I'm going to set choice, or append onto my variable choice, the value item 1. If item 2 is checked, I'm going to append the value item 2, and so forth. Item 3 is checked, I'll append item 3. If nothing is checked, if none of these are true, it's going to hit this else clause, and what's going to be appended to choice is no selection was made. And then all I'm doing is bring a message box to show what the choice was. So let me run this. So if nothing is selected, I'm told no selection was made. It's hitting that else clause. If I choose item 1 was my selection. If I choose item 2 is my selection. I'll jump down to item 4, that's my selection. But what if I have multiple selected? It shows me item 1 was my selection, and that's it. And again, that's because once it hits something that's true, such as cbx item 1.checked equals true, it's going to run the statements that are in that clause, and then all of this is ignored. It's not even checked. That's why we only see one value coming up. Now I'm going to select my code here, and I'm going to replace it with some copied code that I wrote earlier. And rather than using an if, else if, I'm going to use sequential if and if statements. So here I'm looking for the first checkbox being checked. Then I have an end if. There's the second one. There's the third checkbox, the fourth checkbox. And then I have one that says if choice equals quote, quote, which will happen if none of those are true because we set choice equals quote, quote at the very beginning. I'm going to say no selection was made. So let me run this, and you can see the difference of how this functions differently from the previous example. So again, if I have nothing selected, it tells me no selection was made. Select 1, and I see the item that was selected. But if I have multiple selections here, we do 1, 2, and 4. Now it's showing me item 1, item 2, and item 4, because each of those if structures are running independently of the other. Even if this one is true, they'll check to see if this one's true. And they'll check to see if that one's true, and check to see if that one's true, and check to see if that's true.